So let's start off by installing WordPress. Now I'm going to show you how to install WordPress in 3 different contexts. We're going to install it in the root, or as our, not in the root, but we're going to install it as our main domain for our hosting account. We're going to install it on a second domain for our hosting account, and then we're going to install it as a subdomain for a hosting account. I have traditionally only taught it as installing it on the main domain, but I've found that people get confused when it's time to do it in other contexts. So we're going to do it all 3 ways here this morning. And so the first one we're going to do is installing WordPress for the very first time on your primary domain. Now this primary domain is SBYWH.com, and it currently does not have WordPress installed. In fact, if you go to SBYWH.com, you can see it's just got the Bluehost screen on here, right? Because there's nothing currently installed on this. And so we just start that off by clicking on this Install WordPress. Now sometimes people ask me, is it okay to use this one-click install of WordPress? You know, my brother-in-law or my buddy told me that it's not safe and I should be doing it differently. And there are other ways for you to install WordPress, but I do believe that this is a perfectly acceptable, safe, and easy way to install it. Those, you know, all the arguments about how you ought to install this manually are reminiscent of, reminiscent of folks who liked it the good old days, and there are lots of fables about what happens if you install it like you're not as secure if you install it with one-click install and that kind of stuff, and that's simply not the case. It's certainly possible for you to install WordPress manually without this, but this is so much easier that it just doesn't make any sense. So we're going to go ahead and install a brand new instance. And when we do that, it asks which domain I would like to install it to. Now this is a temporary domain. I definitely do not want to install it to that. And I have a choice of either installing it as www.bootcamp.com or without the www. I'm going to install it with the www, primarily because I've read that most people don't really recognize it as a website address if it doesn't have the www in front of it. So that's how I'm installing it. Now it says check the domain. I don't really understand why they bother with this, except maybe they're checking to make sure WordPress isn't installed. But it says it looks like files already exist in this location. If we proceed, some files may be overwritten. And you know, if you want to come over here and take a look at the file manager for just a moment, just to see what's in there right now. If we come over here and look at that, you know, the only files that are there are these files that Bluehost automatically creates when you set up your hosting account. There's nothing here that you have to worry about overriding. And unless you know you've got a WordPress website someplace and you don't really know where it is, you can pretty much ignore this and just say continue. Now, it's very difficult to actually install this properly without showing the advanced options, so that's what we're going to do here. And in this case, I'm going to say, we're going to call this, give it a site name. And this is actually important, right? This is really the name of your site. It shows up in your SEO settings and things like that. So my site or my great blog or all those kinds of things, those are just indications that to Google that you don't know what you're doing. So you definitely want to give it a title or a name. And I'm just going to call this WordPress Crash Course. WordPress Crash Course. Now, for an admin username, I'm not going to use my email address. I'm just going to use BYOBRick. It's suggesting an admin password. I'm going to go ahead and use that password and copy it, and then I'm going to place it in a text document for the time being so I don't forget it. And then you have to say that I have read the terms and conditions of GPL-v2. You can read them if you like. We're going to go ahead and install it. And now comes the opportunity to sell you something, right? They've got a whole bunch of themes here that you can purchase. This is primarily a waste of time for most people, I think, and I wouldn't bother looking at this over. Really, you're going to find your themes a different way, and you probably don't want to purchase a theme directly from this Mojo marketplace. Note now that it says high five, your install is complete. You can view your credentials, and here it is, access your new WordPress site. There's the link to it. Now if we reload this browser window, now you're going to see I've got this default WordPress set up. Note that even though I gave it a site title, it still says My Great WordPress Blog, which is odd because you would have expected it would do what you told it to do. I don't know why it didn't, but it's primarily, I think, a failure in their little algorithm. So we're going to have to come back and change that site here in just a few minutes. This shows you the way to log into the back side of the site, which we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, and then your username and your password. Now, if we come back over to cPanel and we reload it, we reload our public HTML, now you can see there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that didn't exist before, right? This is the same thing I was looking at before, but now I've got this WP admin, WP content, WP includes, and then all of these other files. And we'll talk about the file structure for WordPress here in a little while, but that's what has just happened. This little Mojo marketplace has installed WordPress on your site and has placed all of these files in the root of your web server, which is public HTML. Okay, so that's one way to install it.